Why do the loudest victories so often belong to the quietest souls? Have you ever noticed that the ones who speak the least seem to move mountains? In a world that screams for attention, silence feels like surrender. Yet history whispers a different truth. The deepest rivers run still on the surface, while carving canyons beneath. So we must ask, why do the quietest minds achieve the loudest success? Let us walk into a story that answers with light and shadow. Follow a young architect who learned that silence is not empty but full. In a city of endless marble and roaring ambition stood a district of old libraries. Their windows glowed softly at night, like lanterns guarding secrets. Among them worked a young woman named Selene. She was an architect, but no one in the great halls knew her name. While others shouted their designs across crowded tables, Selene sat alone. She listened more than she spoke, her pencil moving in quiet arcs. Colleagues called her timid, said she would be forgotten. Selene simply smiled and returned to her corner desk. Her sketches were never the flashiest, yet something stirred within them. Each line carried weight, born from hours of unbroken thought. She believed ideas needed silence to grow roots. One winter, the city announced a contest that shook every architect awake. A new grand library was to rise at the heart of the capital. The prize was not just gold, but immortality in stone. Hundreds entered, their voices thundering in every cafe and studio. Bold designs exploded across tables, promises shouted to the rafters. Selene watched the chaos, then returned to her small lamplit room. She closed the door, drew the curtains, and let silence wrap around her. For weeks she spoke to no one, ate little, slept less. Her mind dove deep, undisturbed, like a diver seeking pearls. Questions circled slowly. What does a library truly need to become eternal? In the hush, answers began to surface, delicate but unshakable. She worked without applause, without witness, without noise. Her design grew not from spectacle, but from reverence. Walls that breathed with light, staircases that invited wandering thought, a dome that gathered whispers and turned them into wisdom. When the deadline came, Selene carried a single roll of drawings to the hall. The room fell strangely quiet as she unrolled them on the table. No speech, no defense, just the work speaking for itself. Judges leaned closer, their eyes tracing lines born in solitude. Something shifted in the air, an unspoken recognition. The quietest mind had drawn the loudest breath from the room. The judges studied her drawings for what felt like hours. No one spoke. The silence in the grand hall grew thicker than any applause ever could. Selene stood still, her hands folded, her heart steady. Finally, the chief architect rose, his voice low but certain. "This is not a building," he said. "This is a sanctuary for thought." He turned the plans so the room could see the dome's hidden geometry. Light would pour through channels carved like veins of a leaf. Every corridor curved to slow the walker, to invite reflection. The design did not shout, it listened. And in that listening, it commanded the room. They announced the winner at dusk. Selene's name echoed across the marble like a single bell. The loudest architects stood stunned, their bold towers suddenly small. She did not cheer or leap. She simply bowed, eyes shining with quiet fire. Construction began the following spring. Selene walked the site each dawn while the city still slept. She watched her silent sketches rise into stone and sky. Workers learned to speak softly around her, as if noise might break the spell. Years passed, and the library took shape, serene and immense. Its doors opened on a morning when frost painted the windows silver. People entered and, without knowing why, lowered their voices. Inside, the air itself seemed to think. Readers sat for hours, lost in books and in themselves. Scholars arrived from distant lands, claiming they had never felt such focus. The library became a place where ideas were born, not announced. Selene's name was carved above the entrance, modest and eternal. Yet she still walked the old district at twilight, returning to her small desk. Success had not made her loud, it had only proven her silence stronger. She knew the truth now. Noise distracts, but depth endures. The quietest mind had built the loudest legacy. One evening, an ambitious young architect found her there. He carried rolls of flashy designs and a voice hungry for fame. "Teach me how to be heard," he begged. Selene looked at him for a long moment, then closed her book. "Stop trying to be heard," she said. "Start trying to understand." She placed a single blank sheet before him and left the room. The young man sat alone, the silence pressing against his ears. For the first time, he felt the weight of real thought. Selene smiled from the doorway, knowing the seed was planted. Now let Selene's quiet triumph speak directly to you. The world rewards noise because noise is easy to measure. But the deepest success is forged where no one is watching. Selene did not win because she shouted the loudest. She won because she listened the longest. Her mind, undisturbed by applause or criticism, reached further than any voice could carry. Silence gave her roots, depth gave her height. This is the secret the quietest minds have always known. They do not compete for attention, they compound understanding. And understanding, once earned, echoes forever. So here is the truth laid bare. Noise creates followers, silence creates masters. You do not need a quieter room, you only need a quieter mind. Start small, but start today. Carve one sacred hour where no notification may enter. Close the door, silence the world, and ask one hard question. Do not rush to answer. Let the question breathe. Write what comes, then sit with it until it grows heavier with truth. Guard this hour like a vault. It is where your real power is minted. When the urge to speak rises, pause and listen twice as long. In that pause, entire empires of thought can be built. Watch how quickly the quality of your work begins to speak for you. Colleagues will notice ideas that feel inevitable, as if they were always there. Opportunities will arrive not because you demanded them, but because they recognized depth. The loud will keep shouting, you will keep building. And one day they will look up and wonder how your quiet corner cast such a giant shadow. They will never guess the answer was never volume. It was solitude, it was depth, it was the courage to think longer than anyone else was willing to sit. Selene still walks the old libraries at twilight. Her masterpiece stands downtown, drawing millions who speak in whispers. Yet her greatest creation remains invisible. A mind so still it moves the world. You carry the same possibility within you right now. Close the noise, open the silence. Think deeply, relentlessly, faithfully. The loudest success of your life is waiting in the space you have been afraid to leave empty. Step into that silence today. The world will hear you louder than it ever has before.